Hey fight fans, welcome back to another Top 10 Countdown here on Boxing Legends TV.
Still #1, ain't gonna be that way, baby.
Today, we'll be taking a look at the boxers that just couldn't hang the gloves up. Whether they felt they hadn't truly fulfilled their fighting career or simply didn't have enough money in the bank to maintain their lifestyle, we count down the top 10 famous boxers that fought into old age. Coming in at number 10, we have the White Buffalo, Franz Botha. Although he may not be as famous as the other guys on the list, Botha was a sturdy heavyweight contender in the late 90s and early 2000s, fighting the likes of Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, and Vladimir Klitschko. He even grabbed himself a world title in '95, defeating Axel Schultz, but was later stripped for testing positive for steroids. Botha continued fighting in the mid to late 2000s before taking on Evander Holyfield in 2010, a fight in which he lost by an 8th round knockout. Titles no longer became a part of Botha's plan, as now he was just taking on dangerous up-and-coming talents like Carlos Takam and Joseph Parker, and losing back-to-back fights before his career came to a halt in March 2014. Although never officially announcing retirement, it seems likely we will never see Botha fight again, and hopefully not, because it would be a dangerous idea at the age of 49.
Are we going to see you back?
Oh, yeah, Buffalo come back and I come break some jaws in the celebrity thing here, man, don't worry.
At number 9, we have the two-time Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year, James Lights Out Toney. Being regarded as one of the greatest fighters of the modern time, Toney participated in countless world title fights from middleweight to heavyweight and did not suffer his first defeat until his 47th fight against the great Roy Jones Jr. Despite being known for his defensive skills, Toney appeared to be taking his training less seriously as he got older, and the losses started racking up on his record.
The Burger King, here I go, baby! Burger King, yo!
His most recent fight took place in August 2015, where he lost to club fighter Charles Ellis, who had a record of 9 wins and 3 losses. And it became clear to the boxing public that Toney no longer had anything to offer at the age of 47. Toney begs to differ as he still, to this day, calls out the biggest names in the sport.
What do you make of Tyson Fury?
He's garbage.
Coming in at number 8, we have the former light heavyweight world champion Glenn the Road Warrior Johnson. In a career spanning 22 years, Johnson has fought just about every top fighter of his time and pushed most of them to a very hard fight, but ultimately came up short each time as he now has a record of 54 wins with 21 losses. A deceiving record considering he has beat the likes of Antonio Tarver, Roy Jones Jr., and more recently Alan Green. But as of today, Johnson, at the age of 47, falls heavily under the journeyman category, as he only challenges the up-and-coming prospects campaigning from super middleweight to light heavyweight.
Before he fed, it was okay.
Well, he turned it up against
He takes a right hand and a left hand, and he's on the canvas again for the second time in 2 fights. And for the second time in 2 fights, he's not going to get up, and he's been knocked out again.
Will we ever see Roy Jones in the ring again?
At number 7, we have the highly decorated American amateur and former 3-time light heavyweight champion of the world, the Magic Man, Antonio Tarver. Although not turning professional until the age of 31, that didn't stop Tarver from having a professional boxing career spanning almost 20 years, most famously dishing out a devastating knockout to Roy Jones Jr. in their rematch in 2004, which would eventually be the beginning of the end for the pound-for-pound star Jones, but we'll get to that later.
Sustained attack against him. And down goes Jones on a hard left hand, and that is the most that Roy Jones has ever been hurt.
Tarver now campaigns at heavyweight after recently being signed by Top Dog manager / advisor Al Heyman. His recent draw with Steve Cunningham showed he still has some ability and capability to mix it up at world level, even at the age of 47, and just like James Toney, he regularly calls out the big names in a last-ditch attempt to get one more shot at a title and earn himself a nice payday.
King Kong, you want to see me beat that big motherfucker? Put it on HBO and give me the correct license fee. I'll beat King Kong. Anybody stepping that motherfucking ring right now getting knocked out. Because somebody gonna pay for all my motherfucking struggles.
At number 6, we have the Boxing Writers Association 90s Fighter of the Decade, Roy Jones Jr. This one seems to hit the hearts of the fans the most as they watch their boxing hero in the 90s who dominated all foes from middleweight to light heavyweight, and even stepped up to heavyweight and captured a world title, taking a massive decline in the mid-2000s after suffering his first knockout defeat to Antonio Tarver. After the Tarver loss, Roy hasn't won a meaningful fight since, and along the way has suffered some of the most brutal knockouts of recent years. More recently, his devastating loss to European-level cruiserweight Enzo Maccarinelli was the last straw for fans as they took to social media in desperate pleas for their idol to finally hang him up. But despite that, Roy still fights actively today, taking on club-level opposition, and in 2016, even knocked out a fan as a sanctioned bout. As far as we know, Roy has no intentions of retiring just yet at the age of 47. Coming in at number 5, we have the man that bench presses cows and splits punching bags in two, Big George Foreman. Turning professional at the age of 20 in 1969, fresh off an Olympic triumph that saw him capture a gold medal for his nation of America, George quickly became a hot topic in a very bright heavyweight division in the early 70s. He captured his first world title in 1973 by literally destroying Joe Frazier in 2 rounds, and then later wiping the floor with dangerous contender Ken Norton, winning in the first round. But Foreman was shook up in 1974 when he suffered a shocking defeat by the aging Muhammad Ali, who very few people gave a chance against the seemingly unstoppable Foreman, who had built up a record of 40 wins with no losses.
When Muhammad Ali put George down, he had proven that he is indeed the greatest.
Foreman announced his first retirement in 1977 and didn't return to the ring for another 10 years. He came back looking like a different man, old, slow, and out of shape. But one thing that didn't leave him was his raw power, and that's what contributed to him recapturing his world title in 1994 after defeating Michael Moorer by knockout. Doing so, he became the oldest heavyweight champion of all time, and finally hung the gloves up for good in 1997 after suffering a controversial defeat to Shannon Briggs.
Needs to go back to working. That's it! It's a short right hand! There is no way he's getting up from that! That is the face of shock and awe there!
At number 4, we have the Hall of Fame legend and all-time pound-for-pound heavyweight great, Evander the Real Deal Holyfield. Holyfield made his name campaigning in the cruiserweight division in the late 80s, and then in 1990 stepping up to heavyweight and capturing the heavyweight crown of the Mike Tyson conqueror, James Buster Douglas.
Heavyweight ranks.
What a shot by Evander Holyfield! It was a twisting right, and down went Douglas.
From there on, Holyfield fought the biggest names back-to-back in a very stacked heavyweight division, famously defeating Mike Tyson twice in '96 and '97. His reign as a champion came to an end in 2002 after losing to Chris Bird on points, and he failed to recapture his crown on 2 different attempts in 2007 and 2008. By that point, Holyfield was washed up and retired in 2011 at the age of 51, going out on a high note after stringing together a couple knockout victories. At number 3, we have the currently active modern-day great Bernard the Alien Hopkins. Holding the record for being the oldest man to ever win a world championship at the age of 48, Hopkins has aged well in the sport and still poses much more than just a journeyman threat to the top contenders and world champions of today. He campaigned at middleweight at the start of his career and even holds the record for being the longest reigning 160-pound champion of all time, also holding the record for most title defenses. As the years went by, Hopkins adapted his style to fit his age, and in doing so became successful against the younger guys in his division. Hopkins is scheduled to face rising contender Joe Smith Jr. on December 17, 2016, in a fight we believe he can win. And if he does that at the age of 51, it will, in our opinion, make him the best old fighter of all time. Coming in at number 2, we have one of the most dominant heavyweight champions of all time, the Eastern Assassin, Larry Holmes. From what appeared to be a never-ending list of title defenses in the late 70s and early 80s, Holmes appeared to be almost unbeatable, not suffering a loss until his 48th professional fight. This was a very credible feat, considering the array of great competition he had to face, including Muhammad Ali, Trevor Berbick, and Ernie Shavers, amongst many more. After suffering his first loss to Michael Spinks in 1985, Holmes was never able to recapture his world title, despite fighting for another 17 years, and still being a fairly capable guy with a jab that will forever be known as the greatest ever, in the heavyweight ranks at least. Holmes retired in 2002 at the age of 51, coming off some credible victories over some top contenders like Butterbean, Mike Weaver, and Bone Crusher Smith. Before we take a look at number 1, here are some honorable mentions. At number 1, we have the boxing pioneer himself, the legendary Jack Johnson, famously known for being the first black heavyweight champion of the world. Johnson's style was very unprecedented for his time. He was bigger, stronger, and faster than the crop of white heavyweights of the 1910s and just made easy work of him overall. He eventually lost his title in 1915 to the young Jess Willard by knockout in the 26th round, but some felt he took a dive. Either way, Jack continued fighting for another 16 years before eventually retiring at the age of 53 in 1931, becoming the oldest famous boxer of all time. But not the oldest boxer of all time. That's a list for another day. Thanks for watching, fight fans. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see some more countdowns like this, remember to help support us by hitting the like button and subscribing if you're new around here. Until next time, this is Boxing Legends TV signing off.